I think that each culture, each nation, they have their own way of looking to the words. They have their own way of explaining the words. So for the Asia is the same thing, and it is not even in Asia. I think that Asia is a very vast place. It's just each nation in Asia, each culture in Asia, they have their own way of looking to the world. They have their own way of writing their stories. Obviously, the same way that the Western people use the cars and the Asian or other people use the car, the same way that we consume in the Western countries all the products, or even the art has become a consumer product, everything. So, but in many of the other countries in the south of the globe, being a consumable, it's not part of the culture. So there is a totally different way of looking to everything, and in this culture of the consumers, which is a Western way of looking. Masood Hosseini is part of a group of the 15 Afghan photographers that in 2001, when I started the creation of the Aina Foundation, that my main goal was how photography, how the images, how everything related to the media could help a country coming out of the war, could help the reconstruction of the civil society in reality. So he was one of these 15, which when we announced that we are going to start a photojournalism institute, he came between 700 people that they wanted to be part of them. And we chose him because he has already 3 pictures, 3 prints in an envelope that brought and showed, saying that I have already taken these 3 pictures. And beside this, he was a refugee himself, Afghan refugee in Iran, returning back to Afghanistan, though his own story, making him someone that will really understand what he's talking about, Afghanistan. But then in the works he shows that he really understands his culture, he really understands his country. And I wanted him being presented because now that he's working for AFP, he's too much going in the news coverage, and I believe that the photographer should have a variety way of looking into many different ways. So that was the reason that I thought he's the best person now for the magazine. Well, I mean, you know, that the photography or all the arts is not a real end for the works. The photography, especially in the way that I use, is just a mean. It's a tool to reach a much different, maybe, story, to arrive in a way that the photography, the way I think, that could bring social changes. That's what I'm looking for. I don't believe that there's Asian photography. I think that there's Chinese photography. I think that there's Indian photography, Iranian photography, because these are the different cultures somehow in a broader way, if you put in Asia. But the one thing is important, showing that all these countries, the relations that they have to the Western countries is almost the same. They have been colonized culturally and physically, many of them, and they have been educated by the Western people till in a way that they themselves, they were able to take their own culture in their hands. So there is a mixtures of the yes and no to this question. The photography was, first of all, was invented in the Western countries, the first things. The second thing is that in many of the Asian countries, the image has not the same value that in the Christian countries, because the image and icon has a much more a deep cultural root in the Western culture than many of the Asian culture. The third reason is that, as I said, one economical, because buying the camera and bringing all this chemical, it was more complicated, and it needed years and years and the decades to reach to many of the Asian countries or African countries or South American. But now all this is gone. I think that little by little the technical problem is almost solved, and economical is almost solved. So it's more spreading all over the Asia, all over the places. So we see much more now Asian photographer or African photographer that coming up little by little. It may take another 10, 20 years before totally we have almost a balance of the photographer.